Proteus Leadership proudly presents the Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast with Des Penny, co-CEO and founder of Proteus Leadership.
Hello there, my name is Des Penny. Welcome to my Let's Go and Let's Grow podcast series. I'm thrilled to have you on board. Given this is the first podcast in the leadership series, I thought I'd spend my time letting you know who I am and share some of my own leadership journey and how I came to this point in my life and in my career. So, where did it all start? Well, I was the son of a travelling minister, which meant that most of my childhood was on the road. I went to at least 6 different schools across Australia and New Zealand, receiving the same report card at each. He has so much potential, but he just needs to focus. I'm sure many of you listening today would have heard that one on your report card. Oh yeah, and he talks too much. That was always on the end of it as well. So right from an early age, I was curious and I wanted to know everything and do everything. But as far as I was concerned, school was for sport. And that's one area that I did excel in. The school system just didn't work for me. Although I loved English and music, and later as a mature student I went back and obtained my Masters of Business and Communication degree, along with a range of diplomas and advanced diplomas. But I can remember my English teacher. He was a funny little man called Flexmore Hudson. What a great name. He was a very good poet in his own right, and he actually taught me to love the written word. But leaving school certainly wasn't difficult. I couldn't wait to get out of it and head to my first job and buy my first motorbike, which I did, so I could be just like my older brothers. And I started my working life at Toyota and then followed with a career in manufacturing in the footwear and textile industry. And even though I was so inexperienced and loved my job, I was immediately shocked by the behaviour of my bosses and my workmates. I thought this stuff would only happen back at school, not in the adult world of work. But unfortunately, that theory continues to be shattered on a daily basis all these years later. I'm sure you understand what I mean there. Anyhow, I proceeded through my early career, and even though I didn't necessarily want it, I continued to be promoted into leadership roles. So I guess there was something there that was more than just my short attention span that my teachers had reported on. Then one day I was appointed to the role of personnel manager. It's now called HR or People and Culture Manager. And I was looking after nearly 1,200 people. I was so far out of my depth, I couldn't believe it. The day before, the HR manager had been sacked, and my interview for the job was along the lines of, "Hey Des, you like people, don't you?" "They're okay," I said. Well, apparently that was good enough. And they said, "How would you like the personnel manager role?" That seemed to fit the job description. "Sure," I said, not knowing a thing about the role I was about to take on. Next morning, I was sitting in my own office in the manufacturing plant, staring out the window at 1,200 people with no idea of what to do. I was looking after the HR function, payroll, canteen and catering, and also our internal industrial nursing staff. So overnight I became a medical expert as well. What the? But I sure learned quickly and grew to absolutely love the job and the people on the factory floor. Their problems and their dreams became mine, and on a daily basis I counselled people on some of the most harrowing of life's experiences that you could imagine. One such time I stopped a husband and wife ending it all because life had just become too difficult. Another time a young man in our factory had actually committed a murder and I was involved in all the police dealings. I also dealt with domestic violence long before it became a real public concern. But the people in the manufacturing plant also treated me like one of the family and allowed me to share in their joys and achievements. It was absolutely amazing. There commenced my journey into people management and personal and professional development. And now I had found something that I really loved. I was in that role for almost 18 years before I was recruited into an executive role to set up a HR function in a semi-government IT organisation that produced payroll and HR systems. It was here I experienced not just bad behaviour, but destructive politics that had one purpose only, and that was to win at all costs and to bring someone down with you in the process. It was absolutely brutal. And being in HR meant that my role on the executive of that organisation was that of a peacemaker and counsellor, which eventually became too exhausting and frustrating to continue. They simply didn't want to change, and I didn't care I did, but they didn't care who they hurt along the way. It was just a power game, and they had to win at all costs. So as you can see, some things just never change. One morning we were sitting around the boardroom table, I remember this really well, with the usual positioning taking place. And as I looked around the room at the rest of the executive team, which by the way was 6 men, and I realised that I didn't like any of them, and worse still, if I stayed, I would become like them. No, get me out of here. That was really my trigger to run as fast as I could. And I can remember thinking there must be a better way to treat people and to work more cohesively with each other than what I had experienced in this environment. So, naively and with great trepidation, I stepped out and commenced my own HR and training company that's now gone on to become one of the most respected people development companies in Australia and is now moving into international markets. Imagine if I had taken notice of all those people who told me I was mad and that I would never make it, but instead it just spurred me on to prove them wrong, to live out my dream and to change people's lives. And that's what I do now with an amazing team of people at Proteus Leadership. When I started, I was an absolute fake, a phony, an imposter, in a world that I had no place being. Well, that's what I was told until I took back my own power and self-belief. And still today, people love to pull you down, but remember, it's their issue, not yours. In 2008, I won South Australian Entrepreneur of the Year, and in 2013, I won Australian Small Business Leader, along with several other awards for our business and our team. So who would have thought? Where are the naysayers now? Probably telling someone else that they won't be able to make it. And so the cycle continues until we teach ourselves and others to break it. In 2020, we were just hitting our straps when COVID hit. I was living in the state of Victoria, so without getting too political, you get my message and how dire things were. The first lockdown in April 2020 almost destroyed our business, let alone the 8 months that followed. As you can imagine, we were a training and organisation that facilitated face-to-face programs right across Australia. Overnight, our business was seemingly obsolete. In the month of April 2020, our revenue dropped by 97%, and you don't have to be a financial whiz kid to know that you can't do much with 3%. Needless to say, I had a couple of meltdowns and I found myself at times just sobbing alone. Everything that I had worked for and created was disappearing before my eyes and completely out of my control. Well, so I thought. You know, many businesses across the country shut down forever at this time, but I couldn't do that. I had 20 staff who needed me more than ever, and they became my number one priority. We needed to first survive and then hopefully rebuild. And so that curious and I guess creative little boy who talked too much and couldn't focus, the one with a short attention span and a head full of ideas, appeared once again and started telling a different story. I can remember thinking, I won't allow this thing to win. For God's sake, it's a virus, and I have a brain. I will outthink it, although it did get me twice, I must admit. I needed to take back the controls and find a new and a much better way. And so, along with a small group of my team, we set out to defy what we were being told and to find another way, or as we were being instructed to do, and that was to pivot. I tell you, we pivoted so hard it hurt. But within 3.5 weeks, we reinvented our company into one of the leading virtual training companies in Australia. We converted all of our programs and our courseware. We invested in systems. We built studios in all of our sites across the nation. We retrained our team and started the marketing and education process. It was absolutely hectic, but it was invigorating, and our team shone as we realised that together we were changing the leadership learning landscape. I also discovered so many things about myself and realised that in times of chaos and despair is when I actually shine the brightest. All of our team sacrificed during this time, I know, but it certainly made us more grateful and inspired than we'd ever been. It cemented the truth that what we do is so important. We changed the lives of individuals and organisations. Of course we couldn't fold. How could you not be excited and energised by that revelation? So fast forward a few years and things are somewhat back to normal, but not completely, and I'm not sure that they ever will be. Today, Proteus currently has 8 studios across Australia, with 2 more about to be introduced. We have launched into the international markets in Asia, UK and America, and we are growing. We're moving into further locations across Australia and launching our dedicated coaching arm. But there are still people out there telling us how tough things are going to be and preaching doom and gloom. And without being arrogant or naive, I refuse to be dictated to or guided by someone else's limitations. Sure, we need to take their advice, but always make your own decisions, because you're the only one who truly knows your strengths and your limitations. Because we were created to grow and continually develop, not to live in an environment where we continually doubt ourselves and our abilities and fail to reach our true potential and our true self. Stagnation is for ponds, not for people. So the role of a leader is to bring hope to people, and that comes from them seeing a better way forward. And a better way forward comes from having a growth mindset, taking chances, and believing in ourselves. So what have I learned from all of this that might help others? Because that's really what it's all about, otherwise we wouldn't bother. And the first thing is this: to follow my dreams. Now, that sounds very trite, and we hear a lot of people say that. But the fact is, if you don't dream, then you have nothing to aim or hope for. So don't dismiss those crazy ideas that you might have. Play with them. Let them grow, because that's how dreams are formed. The second thing was to believe in me, no matter what people think and say, because it's only our limitations that matter. It's only my limitations that matter to me. You are not an imposter, and that's something we all need to understand. And also, our stories need to be told so that others can hear them and others can also learn from them. The third thing I learnt was to bring people on the journey. Being an island certainly won't bring you success. I simply could not have done it alone without a great team of people around me. And then to be grateful, whatever part of your journey you're on, because when we focus on the things that are good, we begin to eliminate the negative. And when we appreciate the people in our lives, then life just gets a little bit better. And then keep passion alive. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, is very strong on this. In fact, it's one of his concepts when he does a presentation to people, and it's about day one mentality and saying that passion we had on day one needs to flow through. It doesn't matter how long we've been in a place. And even more than culture, we should be working on having that day one mentality and keeping the excitement on board. Keeping a day one mentality keeps us passionate about what we do and who we are. So all I'd say to you right now is ask yourself, do you still love what you do? If not, get out, or preferably fall in love again. And the last thing is to remember that wherever I am on the journey, I've only just begun. So what you've done up until now is just the foundation for what you're about to do. So I hope this podcast, The Journey to Let's Go, Let's Grow, will also help you on your leadership journey. But remember, no one determines your worth except you. And when you see yourself as truly worthy, then you can achieve almost anything. So whatever the situation you're in right now, it's time to grow again. But you are the only one who can make that happen for you. This Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast has been created to discuss all things leadership and to help leaders maintain a growth mindset so that they can truly reach their potential. So thank you for coming on board, and I hope you enjoy my following leadership podcasts in Series 1. I look forward to speaking with you about all things leadership and introducing you to some of my guests over this series. I'm Des Penny. Thank you, and let's go, let's grow.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get your hands on more inspirational content from Des Penny, head over to proteusleadership.com. From here, you can subscribe to Proteus Leadership's free leadership magazine, Proteus Life. Also, don't forget to check out Proteus News. Sign up today and get a motivational article and news emailed to your inbox each week about highly topical and relevant issues facing leaders in today's complex world. Lastly, if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now and get notified when a new episode drops. Thank you for listening to the Let's Go, Let's Grow podcast with Des Penny.